This is the last Viking chief, and the day his entire world burned to the ground. For 300 years, one people ruled the northern seas, feared, misunderstood. Today, we open their world, beginning with fire. Every helmet was forged by hand. Plain iron, simple shape, built not for legend, but to keep a Viking alive in battle. No horns, no fantasy. The horned helmet was invented 800 years later in a 19th century opera. Real Vikings would have laughed. A Viking man's day began with iron at his side. Every free man carried a weapon. To be unarmed was to be a slave. Slaves were everywhere, captured from England, Ireland, the Slavic lands. They were called thralls. They worked until they died. Not only men carried steel. Some daughters trained with the sword from childhood. The world would learn their names, and fear them too. A Viking sword cost a fortune. It was worth as much as a year's harvest. A man received his first blade and gave his last to his son. Before battle, he turned to the gods. Thor's hammer at his neck, a whisper for victory, a whisper for return. Before war, they fed the gods, a horse slaughtered before the wooden idol of Odin. Blood for victory, blood for return. At night, around the fire, the skald spoke. Sagas of heroes, gods, monsters. Their history had no books, only voices, passed from mouth to mouth for centuries. A wedding was a feast, not a church. Two families bound by ale and oath. The gods watched from the smoke. A great man's funeral burned upon the sea. His ship became his grave, his treasures, his weapons, even his slaves, all sent with him to Valhalla. Among them lived the berserkers, men who entered a trance before battle. They felt no pain, no fear, no wounds. Modern science suspects they ate forest mushrooms. Kings kept them close. 12 berserkers stood as the bodyguard of King Harald. 12 men who could no longer be called men in war. But what truly made them Vikings was not the sword, it was the ship. And the ship began in a quiet bay with oak and patient hands. The dragon was carved last. Mounted on the prow to terrify spirits, enemies, and gods, a warning to every shore the ship would touch. The whole village pushed the ship into the water. It belonged to no one yet, but it would carry their sons to glory, or to the bottom of the sea. 60 men, 60 oars, one sail of red and white. A drakkar could cross open ocean faster than any other ship of its time. And the sea was cruel. Storms swallowed crews whole, yet they sailed on, because the gods favored those who did not turn back. At dawn, the storm broke, and ahead, a coast no Viking had ever seen. Green hills, stone walls, silver waiting. The 8th of June, 793, the monastery of Lindisfarne. Christian monks looked out and saw what they would later call the beginning of a new age, the age of the Vikings. They came ashore in minutes, with no warning, no declaration. The monks who had prayed in peace for 2 centuries would never pray again. Inside the monastery, they killed without mercy. Gold crosses, holy relics, sacred books, all became plunder. To the Vikings, this was not theft, it was harvest. The monastery burned behind them as they sailed away. Across Europe, churches began to add a new prayer. Lord, save us from the fury of... But the Vikings were not only raiders, they were merchants. In Dublin, a city they themselves founded, they sold what they had taken, including human beings. They reached Baghdad, the richest city on earth. There, a Viking traded furs and slaves for Arab silver, coins that still turn up in Scandinavian fields today. In Constantinople, they served the Roman Emperor himself. The Varangian Guard, Viking warriors who protected the throne of Byzantium for 300 years. A Viking named Rurik became the first ruler of Russia. From his bloodline came every Russian prince for the next 7 centuries. In the year 845, 120 Viking drakars sailed up the river Seine. 7,000 warriors. Paris, the great city of the Franks, stood ready to fall. King Charles the Bald paid them 7,000 pounds of silver to leave. They left, then returned in 856, and in 861, and in 885. The kings of Europe kept paying. In 982, a man named Eric the Red was banished from Iceland for murder. 3 years of exile. He had two choices: die at sea or find a new world. He sailed west. He found land covered in ice. He called it Greenland to lure settlers. In 986, 400 Vikings followed him. They built two colonies that would last nearly 500 years. Around the year 1000, Eric's son Leif sailed further west. He found a coast no European had ever seen. 500 years before Columbus. He called it Vinland, the land of wine. They built 8 longhouses at a place we now call L'Anse aux Meadows in Canada. Modern archaeologists found it in 1960, the first European settlement in the Americas. But Vinland fought back. Natives, called Skrælings, attacked with arrows. After 3 years, the Vikings sailed home. America would be forgotten for nearly 5 centuries. On the battlefield, women fought too. In 1878, a Viking warrior's grave was found in Birka. In 2017, DNA proved the warrior was a... When a Viking fell, his sword was placed in his hand. Without a blade, the gates of Valhalla would not open. To die unarmed was to vanish. In 834, a Viking queen was buried in a ship at Oseberg, with a slave, 15 horses, and treasure worth a kingdom. Her grave was found in 1904. In 965, King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark accepted Christianity. He carved it onto a giant stone that still stands. The old gods began to lose their kings, but the old gods did not leave quickly. For 200 years, Vikings wore the cross and Thor's hammer side by side. 2 faiths on one chest. The last pagan temple stood at Uppsala. Every 9 years, 99 men and horses hung from sacred trees. The last sacrifice was held in 1087, the 25th of September, 1066. Stamford Bridge. One Viking held the bridge against the entire English army. He killed 40 men before he fell. After Stamford Bridge, no Viking would ever take the throne of England. The battle lasted one afternoon. The age of the Northmen, 273 years, was over. The fjords fell silent. By 1100, the great longships rotted on empty shores. The men of the north turned to farming. The dragon had gone to sleep. The last warriors became old men. By their fires, they told their grandsons of a world that no longer existed, of Odin, of Thor, of gods who had stopped answering. But Viking blood did not vanish. The Normans who conquered England in 1066 were their grandsons, descended from a Viking named Rollo, who took French land in 911. 1,000 years later, archaeologists still find them. 6,000 graves opened. 200,000 artifacts catalogued. The North gives up its dead, slowly, century by century. Today in Norway, Iceland, Denmark, men build their ships again. They sail the same waters, speak ancient words. The Vikings have only learned to wait. Their weapons fill museums. Their language lives in our days. Thursday, Thor's Day. Friday, Freya's Day. Even now, we still speak their names. And here, in Oslo, one of their ships still stands. Built around the year 820, 1100 years old. The wood that found America. The wood that became legend. Look at your phone right now. The Bluetooth logo is 2 Viking runes, the initials of King Harald Bluetooth. A 1,000-year-old king is in your pocket. In 2020, DNA tests proved up to 30% of the British carry Viking blood. They never truly left. 3,000 Viking runestones still stand in Scandinavia today. The Vikings never disappeared. We just stopped seeing them. The Vikings hide in every week. Thursday is Thor's Day. Wednesday belongs to Odin. Their gods are buried inside your calendar even now. And that simple word yes on your lips every day. It comes from the Norse jar. 1,000 years later, the Vikings still live through you. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more legendary stories from history's darkest and greatest figures.